going to sound crazy because he's a very good player. I think he's having one of his better seasons, especially defensively, because he's actually working some. Should the Atlanta Hawks consider moving on from Trae Young?
Yes. Yes. No, it's I just don't see where this is going. Like in that sense, and you're right, Dave. Like first off, he's been also more efficient
He's a very
on
good
the this is probably one of his better seasons, on both ends of the court. And I think, which is impressive considering how poorly he shot to start the year and finally kind of got going. But I just don't know where this team is going. Like, we know the whole DeJounte Murray trade rumor is there. It seems like if it doesn't happen now, maybe in the offseason, but he's hard to pair a young another player with unless you can find the next Klay Thompson. It's hard, man, and I don't know if there's a guy out there that can do that. And I think that's the challenge for the Hawks. And if that's the case, why are you holding on to the dude? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I just think like that's a difficult position for them where it's like he's great. We're never going to do anything if he's our guy. And I think for them, that's why they got to start looking to cut bait.
I think he is, it's theoretical, but there's a theoretical line above which it makes sense to build our entire organization around this guy. And I think he's just below that line. And
is it a height restriction? Is it like
no? I don't.
Can't ride this roller coaster sort of deal.
No, but I think we're talking about a guy who is we're somewhere in the top 8, 10, 12 players is probably where, and I think he is borderline top 20 guy. Is that fair?
I was gonna say 18 to 25,
18 to 25, somewhere in there, and that's like. And I don't think that because of his size, I don't know if there's the upside to get beyond that. And it's hard to see how Atlanta continues to build around him build with him while sort of removing him from the center of everything they do. And so that's the part that makes me think that again, possibly for both, because he's probably someone who can fit but not be maybe he's the flywheel that powers your offense, but it can't be your entire team is in service of this guy's skill set because he's not quite good enough for that.
It's just too difficult. And the hard part is I made the joke, but he's too small. You could do it with Steph. Steph's 6'3". People forget that, man. Steph's pretty big. He's pretty tall. And I think that's a hard deal for Trae in that sense. Unbelievably skilled, can make every pass. Like I'm blown away by his passing, the lobs off the pick and rolls and everything like that. And it sets that if you have to build your entire offense to cater to him, you're not winning. At the end of the day, like you're not going to win. And we have plenty of proof of that with the Hawks right now. And they've won, the idea of DeJounte Murray would help defensively didn't really pan out for them in that sense. And I think there's a lot of issues for them with that as an organization. And it's a tough one because that's the dude that's the face of your franchise. That's a tough decision to make. I know it's a real difficult one for them, but it goes back to the Griffin thing that we're going to probably beat that dead horse till it no longer exists in its dust. But sometimes the organization has to be honest and just be like, what are we doing here? And I think that's the big question for them to answer.
I also I don't think the 2001 Sixers sort of where you've got your small driving force, like the Iverson, and then, a bunch of functional defenders. I don't think that model works in today's NBA. And frankly, I think that, it's funny because they're inextricable. But I think that Atlanta has had some similar team building kind of foibles trying to do that as Dallas has with Luka. And Luka's a better player in part because he's bigger. But I think that almost the fact that it's the similar struggles with Luka sort of illustrate the degree to which sort of the having the having the one star and then like a in hockey terms a checking line around him doesn't really work in today's game.
The biggest difference, though, is that Luka is a number one guy. And it's easier when you have a number one guy. It's easier to find a number two and to look for a number two. Now, for me, if I was Atlanta, I would be trying to find a real number one to slide Trae to the number two spot, where I think he would be amazing. I mean, imagine if Trae Young was playing with Joel Embiid.
But see, the problem for that is it's very hard to demote the guy
right
now from 1 to 2. Like, yeah, Minnesota has kind of done that with Edwards and Towns. And we all are kind of somewhat expecting at some point for there to be a breakup between the two of them.
And that was organic, though.
That was, yeah.
Level. Right. And that was a guy they drafted. It was a different situation. If they're going to go trade and bring in a guy or go sign a guy to be a number one, that's a hard, because then it becomes a situation in the locker room of whose team is it? What are we doing? It becomes a very difficult scenario, whereas Trae could probably do a better job, would probably accept that role better if he got traded to that spot versus somebody coming in and then that's his role now. Like, that's the hard part in this sort of the hard part of this conversation. And I think that's I said it quickly, but that's mainly because I've been thinking about it for a very long time. But it's a difficult question for the Hawks because he is also a fan favorite. He's also a dude that's like the face of the franchise. He has an entire city of New York screaming F him on a regular basis. And both of you should be impressed that I said F him and not the word. I think that's and I think that's a whole, like, there's a fun story behind that. There's a whole issue.
I thought he was going there when he drew that out.
Look, Trae is very good. He is very good. And it's just, I don't think he can be your number one guy. And like you just said, it's hard to build around that guy.